Hello everyone. So today I'm going to talk about Yakuza 7 because it literally just got announced. We knew they were going to do a conference, but it was behind closed doors, and so information kind of just came out in the last hour or so. But it's pretty crazy because I'm going to show you a video that came out a while ago in a second, but as you can see, Yakuza 7 was announced, and he mentioned, the creator of the series, Nagoshi, mentioned that it is a watershed moment for the Yakuza franchise. Now, before we go through the rest of the information here, I'm going to go back to this video because this video, which by the way, this is really slow because this was originally, they just uploaded a little thing on Twitter, so the frame rate and stuff is not great on this little video here. But what this is something they put out on April Fools. So April 1st, they put this out, and they recorded it initially as kind of like an over-the-shoulder type thing, like, ooh, we leaked the combat of Yakuza 7. And look at it. It's a turn-based RPG. Now, at the time, it was a joke, and I remember thinking, like I said, the frame rate on this is really bad. I remember thinking that, okay, they didn't put this budget and like actually make this in engine and have it be completely nothing just for a joke. This is obviously something, but I was like, and I think a lot of people that are fans that saw this said, oh, this is going to be like some minigame. Yakuza does a ton of minigames, so this is going to be their new thing. This is going to be like their big elaborate one. They've done like kind of tower defense type stuff, board games, everything. They've done so many extra kind of more elaborate ones. This is their more elaborate minigame. Turns out, no. What we have here is actually not just an April Fool's thing. This is actually the combat of the game. So their trick leak, like, oh, we fake leaked it, actually was them on purpose, of course, putting it out there. This is what the game is. So Yakuza 7 will be a turn-based JRPG, which is insane because Yakuza is a brawler. It is basically a 3D brawler. That's what I would call it. You could call it an action game, but really what it's meant to evoke, it's not meant to be as complex as maybe like a Devil May Cry. It's more meant to be a 3D brawler and kind of evoke, I would say, or a beat 'em up, as you might say, kind of evoke, like, I always thought old school, like 2D Double Dragon type things, but in 3D. Very much a different thing than a JRPG. But here we have it. The game's combat will be a full-blown JRPG. And so I'm going to stop this and go to some of the more info we got. But that is really wild. It's a very bold change because Yakuza has always been pretty similar. And even the recent Judgment, which is my favorite game of the year at this moment, plenty to go. But that is just a new IP, but it's really just a Yakuza game with some detective stuff, and even the different detective stuff I don't even think is the best stuff. It's just the writing is quite good. So that's what Nagoshi meant when he says it's a watershed moment, because it is completely different. As they say, the new Yakuza game has a new battle command input system. The game will come out, by the way, on January 16th next year in Japan. Chinese and Korea on the same day. US and Europe will release later in 2020. So, worth pointing out, when they have done this before, Judgment, or Judge Eyes, when it was first announced in Japan, came out in December, and that game ended up releasing in June in the West. And in the past, a lot of Yakuza games have been in the summer. So with this being a month later, a similar timeline would have that game coming out probably June, July, or August. Yakuza Kiwami 2 came out in August, so Judgment was June, so I think it'll be in that range, which is kind of the normal 6-7 month delay. So that's what I'm expecting to basically be about 1 year from now, maybe 11 months. So it'll come out a few months before, like the PS5, which I'm sure they want to get out before then. And what we have here, Nagoshi said, classic Yakuza game format reached one complete style, so we wanted to try something totally different. Our experts of action game creation made this RPG with their flavor. Hope fans welcome this change. If not, they are happy to change back to action games for future releases. So it's very interesting. They're like pretty open about it. Like, we want to do something radically different, but if people really aren't happy, and they're like, Yakuza is a game where I beat up people with my fists, up close and personal. Maybe next time we will change back. So they're not like committing. This is a permanent idea. We definitely think it should be a turn-based RPG, but they're definitely going for it for now. And I think that's pretty crazy how bold of a change it is. I'm actually very, very excited for it. Part of the reason why, despite the news coming out, it's like 1:30 a.m. here, I wanted to jump up and make a video because I'm very excited for it. I think that's a really cool thing. And for me personally, as much as I love Yakuza, and starting with Yakuza 0, it's probably one of my top 3 or so favorite franchises right now. While I enjoy and we do have some screens here while I talk, while I enjoy the action, I would say the combat is pretty low on my favorite parts of the game. I really like the characters, the story, the main story drama mixed with the side stories, or sub stories, which are very comedic, at least a lot of them, and I find them to be some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen in a video game. So it's really the writing I like, as well as the kind of characters and the virtual tourism of Japan. I've always been a sucker for that sort of lived-in place type thing that Shenmue has and stuff like that, where you're kind of just going around and it feels like a real place. So I'm fine with the combat changing because realistically, they're changing the part of the game that I have fun with, but it's not the type of thing where it's like I play the game for the combat, and if I didn't like anything else, I would still play it. The combat might be the thing I'm just the most okay with, but the least in love with. So them changing, while I enjoy the combat, them changing that to an RPG is something I welcome. And what's interesting, as we see some more screens here, is that I feel like with Yakuza 6 being the end of the Kiryu saga, I guess is the way I would describe it, it makes sense that 7, they try something different. Instead of just being like, well, we're going to continue with the franchise and it's going to be the same thing it always was, they're like, no, how about we change everything? So the main character here, and you can see the actor who's playing him in the same outfit, who has an afro, Ichiban Kasuga, is a very different character than Kiryu, who's been the protagonist for a very long time, and we're going to change that. And since we're cutting ties with kind of the heart of the series, or a lot of what the propelling overarching story was, we're also going to change the gameplay and reflect that along with the story. And I think that's a really neat idea. You know, a lot of games wouldn't do that. Plus, I want to say a lot of franchises that have tried to reinvent themselves have been kind of rewarded for it. So if you think about like Zelda Breath of the Wild or the God of War, the recent God of War, you know, it's a different type of game. It's still an action game, obviously, but very different than the old God of War. And Breath of the Wild still kind of an action adventure, but very much more of a bigger open world survival, with some more RPG elements. So adding kind of a twist to a classic formula has been kind of a thing people appreciate when they get burnt out of something. And since the Yakuza games play so familiar, and a lot of them have come out in a really tight span. So Yakuza 0 came out in 2017 in the West, and ever since then we've had 2 remakes, 6, and they just put out the remastered collection as well, which I just bought the other day. Have not started up Yakuza 3 quite yet, but I am very soon. And so, plus we have Judgment, which is basically Yakuza with just some lockpicking and stuff like that. So they all kind of play the same, so you could get burnt out. I personally am not, but you could. And I think it's a great idea to basically go out there and shake things up and say this is a full new moment. And as Nagoshi put it, it's a watershed moment because it's basically them changing what makes the series this series. They're changing the thing that it's been for a very long time, as well as moving on with a new character. And I just wanted to point out that uh, Nagoshi mentioned that the main character, Ichiban, is someone who loves video games. So he's a big fan of Dragon Quest in particular. So I think that's pretty cool. They are going to make the main character more of a gamer. And based off of some of the comments in the past, it sounds like he is more of a kind of a wild card, whereas Kiryu was maybe more of a more kind of noble, honorable, very straightforward. Ichiban might be a little bit more of a Majima type character, which could be a fun thing for a main character of this series to be. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about, go over some of the details on Yakuza 7. And like I said, it is coming out in January 2020 in Japan, probably going to be 6-7 months later in the West. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yakuza is a turn-based JRPG now. A beat 'em up brawler action game went in a turn-based direction, like a complete opposite, which is what's the most crazy to me. But I'm actually very excited for it. I love when games try something new, and as long as it has the Yakuza style writing that all the games have, which I'm a huge fan of, then no matter what the combat turns out like, I won't be disappointed. But if it ends up being good, oh boy, it would be pretty awesome to have another like big JRPG franchise I love mixed in with their writing style, which I really enjoy and think is hilarious. That would be quite an interesting combination. So, yeah, I'm extremely excited for Yakuza 7. Definitely shooting up the list of my most anticipated games for next year now. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. And if you have any, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.